Welcome to the Fostering Emergent Literacy Overview mini-lecture. The purpose of this mini-lecture is to acquaint you with the major theories of literacy learning, the importance of these theories, and the role of language for today's students. We will begin with an anticipation guide. Anticipation guides are a reading strategy that will help to activate your prior knowledge so you can interact more fully with the content. Anticipation guides are designed to probe attitudes and beliefs about important and sometimes controversial topics. There are often no right or wrong answers. The statements will alert you to your attitudes about the topic and encourage you to become more aware of areas where you might require additional information. For each of the statements shown, put a check under agree or disagree to show how you feel. Be prepared to discuss your responses with classmates. Reading is, first and foremost, magical, as those who recall learning to read or have witnessed their students discover the process will attest. It opens the door to a vast world of information, fulfillment, and enjoyment. After having learned to read, a person is never quite the same. It is our job as teachers of any grade and any content area to help our students read and understand the material presented. I encourage you to find a copy of the book, Thank You, Mr. Falker, written by Patricia Polacco, and read it. Before we begin studying the teaching of reading, it is important to show some of the theories of literacy learning and language development. In this presentation, we will discuss behaviorism, cognitivism, cognitive behavioral approach, top-down and bottom-up approaches, and the reading response theory. Behaviorism is a philosophy of learning that describes all the activities of an organism in terms of observable actions or behaviors. You may recall in your psychology courses talking about Pavlov and his experiments where dogs were taught to salivate at the ringing of a bell, or B.F. Skinner and his Skinner box. Behaviorism is only interested in observable reactions or actions. They are not concerned with the internal thought process. Cognitivism is a philosophy of learning that describes the actions of an organism in terms of observable actions or behaviors and internal or mental states. Many of the practices advocated in literacy education are based on the work of Piaget and Vygotsky, the two leading developmental theorists of modern times. Vygotsky, a Russian psychologist, stressed the social nature of language and learning and the important role that adults play in both. Piaget, a Swiss psychologist, stressed stages of cognitive development and the unique nature of children's thinking. Piaget concluded that children's thinking is qualitatively different from adults' thinking and that it evolves through a series of hierarchical stages. He believed that children's thinking develops through direct experience with their environment. Through adaptation, or interaction with the environment, the child builds psychological structures, or schemes, which are ways of making sense of the world. Adaptation includes two complementary processes, assimilation and accommodation. Through assimilation, the child interprets the world in terms of his schemes. Seeing a small black cat, the child calls it kitty, and assimilates this in his or her kitty scheme. Seeing a skunk for the first time, the child might relate it to his or her kitty scheme and call it kitty. Later, realizing that there is something different about this creature, he or she may accommodate this kitty scheme and excludes the skunk. Thus, the child has refined his kitty scheme. To Piaget, direct experience rather than language was the key determiner of cognitive development. Although both Piaget and Vygotsky believed that children need to interact with the world around them, Vygotsky stressed the importance of social factors in cognitive development. He is best known for the zone of proximal development and scaffolding. The zone of proximal development is the difference between independent performance and potential performance as determined through problem solving under guidance of an adult or more capable peer. In other words, the zone of proximal development is the difference between what a child can do on his or her own and what the child can do with help. The support and guidance provided by an adult or more capable peer is known as scaffolding. In the previous example about the kitty scheme, if, when a child sees a skunk and calls it kitty, a parent or older sibling says something like, "No, that's a skunk, it smells bad. The white stripe down its back helps us to know it's a skunk and not a kitty," The child would accommodate the new information given to him or her through language and adapt the kitty scheme to exclude the skunk. Behavioral and cognitive principles have been combined in an approach known as cognitive behavioral modification. Our behavior is affected by the set of rewards and punishment we have experienced in the past and our beliefs, thoughts, and expectations. This approach uses self-talk and rewards to replace faulty learning habits and beliefs with effective habits and strategies and realistic beliefs. In the bottom-up approach, students derive meaning from the accurate sequential processing of words where emphasis is on the text rather than the reader's background knowledge or language ability. Children literally start at the bottom and work their way up. First, they learn the names and shapes of the letters of the alphabet. Next, they learn consonant sounds, followed by simple and then more complex vowel correspondences. In the bottom-up approach, instruction proceeds from the simple to the complex. In essence, there are probably no 100% bottom-uppers among reading teachers. Even those who strongly favor phonics recognize the importance of higher-level strategies. In the top-down approach, students derive meaning by using background knowledge, language ability, and expectations where emphasis is on the reader rather than the text. Learning to read is seen as being similar to learning to speak. It is holistic and progresses naturally through immersion. Such skills are not taught because it is felt that they fragment the process and make learning to read more abstract and difficult. As far as comprehension is concerned, the top-down view is that students build their understanding through discussions of high-quality literature or informational text. There is generally no direct, explicit instruction of comprehension strategies. In the Interactionist theory, students derive meaning in reading from processing text and using background knowledge and language ability. Most teachers tend to be more pragmatic than either strict top-downers or bottom-uppers and borrow practices from both ends of the continuum. These interactionists teach skills directly and systematically, especially in the beginning, but they avoid overdoing it as they do not want to fragment the process. They also provide an opportunity for students to experience the holistic nature of reading and writing by having them read whole books and write for real purposes. Still another way of looking at reading is from a literary or reader response view. This theory explores the role of the reader. Rosenblatt states, "Every reading act is an event, or a transaction, involving a particular reader and a particular pattern of signs, a text, and occurring at a particular time in a particular context. Instead of two fixed entities acting on one another, the reader and the text are two aspects of a total dynamic situation. The meaning does not reside ready-made in the text or in the reader, but happens or comes into being during the transaction between reader and text." Rosenblatt, 1994, page 1063. The type of reading, of course, has an effect on the transaction. The reader can take an efferent or aesthetic stance. When reading a set of directions, a science text or a math problem, the reader takes an efferent stance, the focus being on obtaining information that can be carried away. In the aesthetic stance, the reader pays attention to the associations, feelings, attitudes, and ideas that the words evoke. At this point, you may be thinking, why is it important to be aware of different theories of teaching reading? For one thing, it is important that you formulate your own personal beliefs about reading and writing instruction. These beliefs will then be the foundation for your instruction. They will determine the goals you set, the instructional techniques you use, the materials you choose, the organization of your classroom, the reading and writing behaviors you expect students to exhibit, and the criteria you use to evaluate students. For example, whether you use children's books or a basal, how you teach phonics, and whether you expect flawless oral reading or are satisfied if the student's rendition is faithful to the sense of the selection will depend upon your theoretical orientation. Secondly, it is also important to know your theoretical foundation in today's age of accountability. Being able to back up what you are doing in the classroom with a well-known theory or theorist can be helpful. Also, it can help you know what the state and your principal are mandating you to do. Is it behavioral or cognitive? Bottom-up or top-down? To successfully advocate for your students and your preferred teaching style, you need to know the theorist and be able to supply support, usually research articles, for your position. Without language, there would be no reading. Reading is very much a language activity, and ultimately, our ability to read is limited by our language skills. Reading is a process in which we construct meaning from print. Therefore, we will now take a look at the components of language, the development of language, language and thinking, learning a second language, and the growth of vocabulary. Language has a number of interacting components. These components are phonology, speech sounds known as phonemes, morphology, word formation, syntax, sentence formation, semantics, word and sentence meaning, prosody, intonation and rhythm of speech, pragmatics, effective use of language, knowing how to take turns in a conversation, using proper tone, using terms of politeness, etc. Theories of language learning are similar to those of cognitive learning discussed earlier. From the behavioral standpoint, language is learned through reinforcement. As baby makes sounds and toddlers say words, they are reinforced by their caregivers. Imitation is also a factor. The nativist viewpoint maintains that children are born with a language acquisition device that predisposes them to learn and generate structures. Interactionists note that caregivers use a number of strategies, such as speaking slowly, repeating, and filling in missing words, to encourage and scaffold emerging speech. According to social interactionists, humans use these strategies naturally. We have an inborn need and desire to communicate. Social cognitives such as Vygotsky see language not just as a tool for communicating, but also a tool for learning and thinking. Young children literally think out loud. Children also develop a kind of talk known as private speech. Private speech is spoken, but is not meant to communicate. Adults sometimes use private speech when they say something like, "I know I left it around here somewhere." In time, private speech becomes inner speech, which is inaudible. Inner speech develops into verbal thinking. Verbal thinking is a compressed form of inner speech. It is folded. The child might be conscious of the final idea, but not the ideas that led up to the final idea. The preliminary or accompanying ideas are folded within the final idea or conclusion. Large numbers of students learn English as a second or even a third language, so it's important to have some understanding of the acquisition of additional languages. Here are some tips for helping English language learners in your classroom. Accept their native language. Provide comprehensible input. Make sure they know 98% of the words in the text. Use bold-faced vocabulary words, marginal glossaries, and illustrations. Speak slowly, using gestures and visuals and explaining new words. Provide friendship opportunities through groups and buddies. By age 3, children have a speaking vocabulary of about 1,000 words, mostly nouns and verbs. By the time they enter kindergarten, they may know 5,000 words or more. The major influence on the quantity and quality is the kind of talk they are exposed to. Therefore, the most important thing parents and caregivers can do for their children is to talk to them. The amount of talk directed towards infants and toddlers is powerfully related to their verbal abilities and their success in school. As a teacher, you can't change the quality and quantity of language to which the children have been exposed, but you can increase the quality and quantity of talk in your classroom and encourage parents and other caregivers to do the same. Reading is a continuously developing activity which emerges from a child's experience with oral language and print. Reading emerges gradually and develops continuously, so that it is somewhat artificial to segment the process into stages. This is done, however, to provide greater understanding of the reading process. They are designed to characterize the average child. Slower to learn children of the same age and brighter children of the same age may be lower or higher, respectively. Of course, much variability will be seen even among children who are average. What kind of program will help meet the literacy needs of today's students? The 12 principles described below should make a difference in determining an effective literacy program. Children learn to read by reading. Reading should be easy but not too easy. Instruction should be functional and contextual. Teachers should make connections. Teachers should promote independence. Teachers should believe that all children can learn to read and write. The literacy program should be goal-oriented and systematic. Teachers should build students' motivation and sense of competence. Teachers should build students' language proficiency. Teachers need to know how students are progressing so that they can give them extra help or change the program if necessary. Classroom management for learning should be an essential part of the literacy program, and ongoing assessment is an essential element. What are the characteristics of effective teachers? Highly effective reading teachers are caring and have high expectations, which is perhaps the most outstanding characteristic. They offer balanced instruction and provide extensive instruction and reinforcement. Highly effective teachers scaffold students' responses and have effective classroom management skills. These teachers emphasize effort and cooperation while building student independence. They use high-quality materials, sometimes finding supporting materials outside the given curriculum. They match all materials and tasks to student competence. How did highly effective teachers get that way? They worked at it. They were always seeking better techniques and better materials. To sustain their desire for improvement, they kept up with developments in the field through taking courses, attending workshops and in-services, and reading the professional literature. They also reflected on their teaching and sought the advice of colleagues. This course is based on the premise that virtually all children can learn to read and write.